A Marine battleship, full broadside, 20 cannons, point-blank range, and one man standing in front of all of it, bare feet on open water, arms crossed, grinning like it's Christmas morning. The cannonballs never land. They just stop, frozen midair, humming, like they're afraid to go any further. Multiverse Saiyan. That's the flag flying over this one. Because we just dropped the strongest fighter across every universe into the one world built entirely around finding the strongest fighter. Goku, the grand line. No holding back, no power scaling excuses. Full strength, both sides. What happens when a man who casually punches gods meets a world with Yonko, admirals, and secrets buried under the sea itself? You're about to find out. Written by James Roony. And if you've got your own what if itching to be told, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Subscribe, hit that bell, and don't look away, because this ocean's never seen anything like what's coming. The key was wrong before it was anything else. Goku felt it the way you'd feel a hand close around your wrist in the dark. Sudden, certain, impossible to ignore. He was mid-air over the sacred world of the Kai, catching his breath after a spar with Vegeta that had ended, as usual, with both of them laughing and bruised and refusing to admit who'd won. And then it hit him, a spike of power so vast it didn't register as a number, it registered as a place, somewhere his instincts insisted didn't belong on any map he knew. "You feel that?" he said, already turning toward it. Vegeta, still catching his breath 20 feet away, scowled instinctively, which was Vegeta's way of paying attention. Feel what? But Goku wasn't listening anymore. He had his fingers pressed to his forehead, chasing the signature the way a dog chases a scent, and something about it made his stomach drop with excitement instead of dread. It wasn't malicious. It wasn't controlled either. It felt like a storm that hadn't decided yet if it wanted to be a storm. "Back in a bit," Goku said, and vanished. Instant transmission had never failed him. Not once. Not in thousands of jumps across 100 timelines and a dozen universes stacked on top of each other like pages in a book nobody had bothered to number. He locked onto the key signature, felt the familiar tug behind his navel, and let go. The tug lasted too long. That was the first sign something had gone sideways. The half-second stretched into a full second, then two, weightless and formless, and wrong, like falling through a hallway with no walls. Goku had time to think, distantly, before the world reassembled itself around him in a rush of salt air, cannon smoke, and screaming wind. He landed standing on water. That wasn't new. Ki could do that anywhere. What was new was everything else. To his left, a wall of warships, easily 30 strong, white hulls and blue trim, seagull insignia stamped on sails the size of buildings, cannons run out and already firing. To his right, mirroring them almost exactly in scale, black-hulled ships with tattered dark sails, crewed by men who looked like they'd been carved out of violence itself, Jolly Rogers snapping in the wind. And directly between the two fleets, in the open water, cannonballs, dozens of them, mid-flight, converging on a target that Goku slowly realized, with a rising sense of comic horror, was him. "Oh," Goku said out loud, to no one. "That's a lot of cannons." He didn't think. He never really did. Not in the way people expected him to. Thinking was Vegeta's department, or Bulma's, or anyone smart enough to plan things out in advance. Goku's gift had always been simpler. His body understood danger a half-second before his mind caught up, and it acted. His hand came up, palm out, aura flaring pale gold at the edges, and the cannonballs, every single one, stopped dead in the air, frozen mid-flight, humming faintly with the pressure of a will far larger than the iron holding them together. For 3 full seconds, nobody on either fleet made a sound. Vice Admiral Rekka Sorn had been in the Marines for 26 years, had fought beside 2 admirals, and buried more subordinates than she let herself count. And in all that time she had built exactly one professional habit that had never once failed her. When something impossible happened, you did not blink, and you did not guess. You measured, She measured now. A man, young-looking, spiky black hair, an outfit that belonged to no nation she recognized, was standing on the surface of open ocean as though it were packed sand, holding 24 live cannon rounds, frozen in the air around him, without visible effort, without a weapon, without so much as narrowing his eyes. Her observation haki, trained over 2.5 decades to read killing intent before a blade ever left its sheath, told her something that made her palms go cold. There was no intent radiating off him at all. Not restrained, not hidden, genuinely, entirely absent, the way a mountain has no intent to be tall. That was worse than rage. Rage, she understood. "Hold fire," she said, and her voice didn't rise. But every gunner on her flagship's deck obeyed instantly, because that was the other thing 26 years bought you. Across the gap, on the black flagship's foredeck, Marshal D. Teach was not nearly so composed. He was grinning. He was always grinning. It was the single most honest thing about him, but his eyes had gone sharp and still, tracking the stranger the way a starving man tracks a plate he hasn't been told he's allowed to eat yet. "Now that," Blackbeard said, low, to no one and everyone, "is interesting." Goku let the cannonballs drop, not violently. He lowered his hand and simply released them, and they fell the remaining few feet into the water with soft, anticlimactic plunks, bobbing harmlessly on the surface, like the whole thing had been a magic trick gone slightly wrong. He rubbed the back of his neck, looking between the two fleets with the open, unbothered curiosity of a man who had just wandered into someone else's fight and wasn't entirely sure whose fight it was. "Sorry," he called out, to both sides at once. "Didn't mean to land in the middle of whatever this is. You guys are fighting each other, right? Not me?" Silence. Then, from the Marine flagship, a woman's voice, calm, edged, carrying easily across open water without a den mushi. "Identify yourself." Goku squinted at her, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, standing very straight in a white coat that meant something here, even if he didn't know what. He liked her instantly. She reminded him of Piccolo on his more patient days. "Goku," he said cheerfully. "I was chasing a power spike and my teleport kind of overshot. This isn't the sacred world of the Kai, is it?" "No," Sorn said. "It is not." Before she could say anything further, a laugh rolled across the water from the other fleet. Big, genuine, delighted. Blackbeard had stepped up onto the black ship's railing, balancing there with the easy confidence of a man who had never once considered the possibility of falling. "Marines," he called out, still grinning at Goku, "you can have your little truce later. Right now I want to know, stranger, how strong are you, really? Because you just caught a full broadside like it was raindrops, and I haven't seen something make my blood run this hot in years." Goku's ears perked up at that, in a way that had nothing to do with tactics, and everything to do with the one thing that had never once changed about him, across every universe he'd ever visited. "You want to fight?" he asked, and the grin that split his face was pure, uncomplicated joy. "Goku," Vegeta's voice cracked out of nowhere behind him. The older Saiyan's key signature had apparently followed the same tug through the same tier, landing hard on the water a dozen feet away, arms crossed, scowling at the entire scene like it had personally offended him. "Do you have any idea where we—" "Vegeta, look, it's a whole ocean fight. I can see that, third class. I'm not blind." Sorn's eyes flicked between the two new arrivals, recalculating in real time. Two of them, both radiating the same impossible absence of readable intent. Both, apparently, capable of the same casual disregard for physics that had just stopped 30 rounds of Marine ordnance cold. She raised her hand, and behind her, signal flags began climbing a mast toward the crow's nest, a message racing back toward the nearest Marine relay station, and from there, up the chain, toward people whose job it was to decide what the world did when something arrived in it that the world had never accounted for. Unidentified individuals, origin unknown, Power classification exceeds current scale. Recommend immediate escalation to headquarters. She did not flee. She did not surrender the field. She simply gathered every scrap of information the next 60 seconds would give her, because that was the job, and the job did not stop simply because the impossible had shown up wearing an orange gi and asking, with genuine friendliness, if anyone wanted to fight. Blackbeard didn't wait for permission from anyone, least of all the Marines. He dropped off the railing onto the water's surface, his own crew tensing behind him, half in awe and half in the particular dread that came from knowing their captain's hunger rarely ended in anything except somebody else's tragedy, and started walking toward Goku across open sea like the ocean owed him passage. "Marines," he called back over his shoulder, not even bothering to look at them. "You're not the interesting part of today anymore." Soren's jaw tightened. That, more than anything, told her exactly how badly the balance of this encounter had already tipped, and exactly how carefully she was going to need to write her report, assuming she survived long enough to file one. Goku rolled his shoulders, settling into a loose, ready stance, the water beneath his bare feet rippling outward in slow, widening rings. "Whoever you are," he said, still grinning, "you feel strong. Let's see it." Behind him, Vegeta muttered something about idiots and instant transmission, and let his own aura begin to rise, gold sparking at the edges of his hair, because if his rival was about to throw down in some ocean full of strangers, Vegeta was not about to be the one left standing on the sidelines watching. Two fleets held their breath. A vice admiral counted the seconds until her signal reached headquarters, and somewhere far above the new world's churning, restless water, the first real shockwave of a fight that would rewrite what everyone here understood about strength was about to begin. Blackbeard moved first. There was no wind-up, no telegraphed step, just a sudden absence where he'd been standing, and a presence where he hadn't, his fist already swinging through the space Goku's head had occupied a half-second earlier. Except Goku wasn't there anymore either. Having ducked under the blow with the unhurried ease of a man swatting away a fly he found mildly interesting, and the punch that should have ended a lesser fighter instead tore straight through empty air and cracked the surface of the ocean itself, sending a spray of seawater 40 feet into the sky. "Fast," Blackbeard said, grinning wider, not even slightly bothered. "Good. You too," Goku said, already moving again, testing, a light jab that Blackbeard twisted away from at the last possible instant, close enough that Goku felt the displaced air brush his knuckles. That was new. Most people he sparred with these days couldn't dodge him at anything less than serious effort. This one had done it looking almost bored. What Goku didn't know yet, what nobody on that stretch of ocean could have told him, because it wasn't written anywhere in any log the Marines kept, was that Marshal D. Teach possessed two devil fruits fused into one body, a violation of nature's own rules that should have killed him and instead had made him something the world hadn't fully reckoned with yet. Yami Yami no Mi, the power to swallow anything into absolute darkness. And layered beneath it, humming, with barely restrained hunger, Gura Gura no Mi, the power to shatter the world itself. Goku found out the hard way, the way he found out most things. Blackbeard caught the next punch, didn't dodge it, caught it, wrapping one massive hand around Goku's fist mid-strike, and where his skin made contact, Goku felt something pull. Not pain, absence. A cold, hungry vacuum trying to drag the ki straight out of his body the way a drain pulls water, and for one disoriented half-second, his golden aura flickered like a candle in wind. "Whoa," Goku said, yanking his hand back, shaking it out, genuinely startled for the first time since he'd arrived. "Okay, that's a new one. Darkness eats everything," Blackbeard said, still grinning, savoring the reaction like a fine meal. "Devil fruits, hockey, dreams, ambition, life itself, if I hold on long enough. You're the first thing in 20 years that didn't scream when I touched it." "Should I have? Most people do." Goku's grin came back, sharper now, more focused, the particular expression he wore when a fight had just stopped being a formality and started being real. "Good," he said. "I was starting to worry this whole place was gonna be easy." He didn't power up yet. That was deliberate, the same instinct that had guided every serious fight of his life. You didn't show your whole hand to something you hadn't finished measuring, and this devil fruit hunger was a variable he wanted to understand before he committed to burning through it. So he stayed base form, stayed fast, and started actually fighting instead of playing. A flurry of strikes testing angles, testing how quickly that void black hand could track him, testing whether the absorption required contact or simply proximity. It required contact. That was the answer he needed. 50 feet away, Vegeta watched with his arms still crossed, jaw tight, saying nothing, which for Vegeta was its own kind of tension, because Vegeta rarely stayed quiet through anything, let alone a fight involving his idiot rival and an unknown enemy on an unknown ocean. His eyes were doing the same math Goku's body already had. That fruit doesn't just take power, it takes existence. If it grabbed hold of the wrong thing for long enough, it wouldn't matter how strong you were. "Kakarot," Vegeta said finally, low. "Don't let him hold on." "Kinda figured that out myself," Goku called back, cheerful even mid-combat, ducking under another grab and answering with a knee that connected hard enough to send Blackbeard skidding backward across the water's surface, carving a long white scar through the waves. Blackbeard came up laughing, actually laughing, delighted, wiping blood from his lip with the back of one massive hand and looking at it like it was the best thing he'd tasted in years. "You hit like a Yonko," he said. "Where in the world did you come from?" "Different world, actually," Goku said. "Long story. You gonna keep swinging or you wanna hear it?" "Oh, I'm going to keep swinging," Blackbeard said, and behind him, dark energy began to gather, not just around his fist now, but spreading outward across the water's surface in slow cracking fissures of pure black, the telltale sign of Gura Gura no Mi, beginning to wake up beneath the Yami Yami's hunger. "But I figure I should introduce you to my other friend first." Rekka Sorn had seen Gura Gura no Mi used exactly once before, from a comfortable and terrified distance, during the war at Marineford, 18 years ago. She had watched Whitebeard crack the sky itself with a single strike from that power, back when it had belonged to a different man entirely, and she had promised herself she would spend the rest of her career making sure she was never standing anywhere near it again. She was standing near it again. "All ships, fall back to minimum safe distance," she called out, voice still level even as her pulse hammered against her ribs. "Now, that is not a suggestion." Her fleet responded instantly, sails adjusting, rudders turning, 30 warships beginning a coordinated retreat that any of her subordinates would later describe as the fastest orderly withdrawal they'd ever executed. She stayed on the flagship's foredeck herself, close enough to keep observing, because someone needed to bring headquarters a first-hand account, and she had already decided, somewhere in the last 2 minutes, that it was going to be her. Across the water, the black-sailed fleet was pulling back too, though less out of caution and more out of simple self-preservation. Blackbeard's own crew had learned the hard way, over the years, exactly how far away you needed to stand when the captain got serious, which left 2 combatants, alone, on a stretch of ocean about to become something closer to a battlefield than a fight. The strike came a heartbeat later, a full swing, both fists driving down toward the water's surface, and the world broke. Not metaphorically. Gura Gura no Mi's power didn't create an explosion so much as it created a wound, a shockwave of pure vibration tearing outward from the point of impact, splitting the ocean itself, throwing up a wall of water and force that any of the 10 Titanic captains would have recognized instantly and respected without hesitation. It hit Goku dead on before he had a chance to fully dodge, and for one gut-wrenching second, the first genuinely dangerous second since he'd arrived, the sheer scale of the impact actually staggered him, driving him backward through the air in a spray of foam and displaced water. He caught himself 30 feet back, boots skidding against the ocean's surface, breathing a little harder than before. "Okay," Goku said, and there was something new in his voice now. Not fear. Goku didn't really do fear, but genuine, sharpened respect. That one actually hurt. "Good," Blackbeard said, grin widening into something almost feral. "Then let's stop holding back." Goku's own grin answered it, and this time, finally, he let go of the leash he'd kept on himself since he'd landed. Gold light exploded outward from his body, in a column that turned the surrounding water white with reflected glare, his hair standing on end and shifting from black to blazing gold, his eyes flashing teal green, the whole ocean around him suddenly humming with pressure like the air itself had grown heavier. Blackbeard's crew, watching from a safe distance, went dead silent. Sorn, watching from her own flagship, felt something cold settle into her stomach. The specific, professional dread of a soldier realizing that everything she'd written in her report 30 seconds ago was already catastrophically out of date. "Marine headquarters is not going to believe this," she murmured to herself, and signaled for the Den Mushi operator to open a second, more urgent channel. What followed was not a fight so much as a natural disaster, with two witnesses inside it. Goku moved faster than Blackbeard's hockey-honed reflexes could fully track now, landing 3 strikes for every one Blackbeard managed to answer, each impact cracking against the massive man's frame with a sound like distant thunder. But Blackbeard took them, grinning through split lips and a spreading bruise along one cheekbone, absorbing punishment with the specific, unnatural durability of a man whose body had already survived one impossible transformation and apparently intended to survive a second. Every few exchanges, that void dark hand would lash out, hungry, trying to find purchase, and every time, Goku pulled back a half-second faster, refusing to let it close. "You're not gonna grab me again," Goku said, landing a spinning kick that sent Blackbeard skidding across the water a second time. "I already know what that feels like. I don't need to grab you twice," Blackbeard said, spitting blood, still grinning, still delighted despite the beating he was taking. "I just need to grab you once more than you grab me. That's the whole game." He was right, and some small, careful part of Goku's mind, the part shaped by decades of fighting things that could genuinely kill him, filed that away as the single most dangerous thing anyone had said to him since he'd arrived. The fight tore across the ocean's surface in both directions, shockwaves splitting water into towering white walls, gold light and black void, trading blows in a rhythm too fast for any unenhanced eye to follow. Vegeta watched, tense and silent, one hand hovering near his own rising ki, ready to intervene the instant it looked like his rival needed it, an instinct he would never have admitted to out loud, not even under torture. It didn't come to that, not yet, because at the exact moment Goku wound up for a strike meant to end the exchange. Fist cocked, aura roaring, every intention of closing this fight before that hungry black hand found an opening. The sky itself changed. A shadow fell across the water. Vast, deliberate, unhurried in a way that made every instinct in Goku's body go suddenly, completely still, the same ancient warning his body had learned to recognize across 100 fights against 100 gods. Something bigger just arrived. Above them, blotting out a wide stretch of clear New World sky, a Marine Admiral's vessel had crested the horizon, not sailing, not simply arriving, but descending, the water around its hull already beginning to freeze into jagged spires of ice that spread outward from the ship's wake, like frost creeping across glass. Blackbeard's grin, for the first time since Goku had landed, faltered. "Ah," he said, glancing up, wiping blood from his mouth with something that was almost respect. "That's my cue to reconsider my afternoon." The ice spread fast, faster than natural cold had any right to move, climbing across the ocean's surface in branching, crystalline fingers that reached toward both combatants like something alive and patient. Goku felt the temperature drop around his ankles before he saw the source, a bone-deep chill that had nothing to do with weather and everything to do with a will powerful enough to reshape the sea itself into a weapon. He looked up. Standing on the frozen bow of a descending marine warship, arms folded behind his back, was a man who radiated the specific, terrible calm of someone who had never once needed to raise his voice to be obeyed. White coat, silver hair swept back, a face carved into an expression of permanent, unbothered authority. Admiral Kuzan's successor, the current bearer of the Hiei no Mi, a man the Marines simply called Frost, in every report that crossed headquarters' desk, because his predecessor's name still carried too much weight to reuse casually. Vice Admiral Sorn's report reached me faster than I expected, Frost said, voice carrying easily across the frozen water without any visible effort. 2 unregistered combatants, power exceeding current classification scale. I came to see for myself before headquarters started making decisions based on second-hand panic. Goku powered down slightly, without quite meaning to. Not out of fear, but out of the same instinctive respect he'd shown Beerus. Once, a long time ago, the recognition of a presence that operated on a different register than the noise around it. You another one of the strong ones around here? I'm an admiral, Frost said, as though that answered the question completely. Which, Goku would learn over the next several minutes. It more or less did. Blackbeard, for his part, had already begun a slow, unhurried retreat, his own crew's ships pulling up behind him to cover the withdrawal. As fun as this has been, he called out, I didn't survive this long by fighting an admiral and a monster on the same afternoon. We'll finish this later, stranger. I promise you that. His eyes lingered on Goku a moment longer, hungry and calculating in a way that had nothing to do with the fight and everything to do with the fruit still humming beneath his skin. You're the single most interesting thing to happen to this ocean in a decade. I don't waste interesting things. Then he was gone, his fleet withdrawing into the haze with the practiced speed of pirates who had made an art form out of knowing exactly when a fight had stopped being worth the cost. Frost watched him go without moving to stop him, which told Goku something important about how power actually worked around here. Nobody chased Blackbeard casually, not even an admiral, not without a very good reason and a great deal of backup. You let him leave, Goku said. Chasing him costs more than it's worth right now, Frost said simply. You, on the other hand, are still here. And I have questions. They didn't fight. That surprised Goku more than almost anything else that had happened since he'd landed. An admiral, radiating power he could genuinely respect. And instead of throwing the first punch, the man simply stepped down off his ice-wreathed ship, walked across the frozen water until he stood a comfortable 10 feet away, and waited. You're not attacking me, Goku said. Should I? Most people who find out how strong I am usually want to test it. I've been an admiral for 6 years, Frost said, something dry threading through his calm. I stopped needing to test things a long time ago. I can see plainly enough that fighting you would cost me more than I'd gain, and cost this ocean considerably more than that. So instead, who are you? Where did you come from? And what do you want here? It was, Goku reflected, the first genuinely reasonable question anyone had asked him since he'd arrived, and he found himself liking this man's directness the same way he'd liked Whis' once, the specific calm of someone secure enough in their own strength that they didn't need to prove it every 5 minutes. So he told him the truth, plainly, the way he told most people most things. Instant transmission, the power spike he'd been chasing, the tier that had dropped him somewhere he'd never intended to be. Vegeta, standing a short distance off, added corrections here and there with the particular irritation of a man forced to explain something he found beneath him. Frost listened without interrupting, and when it was over, he was quiet for a long moment, weighing something behind carefully neutral eyes. You understand, he said finally, that what you just described, arriving without warning, without cause, wielding power that outstrips anything currently charted on this ocean, is precisely the kind of event the world government has entire departments built to prevent. Not because you've done anything wrong, because the world doesn't yet know that you haven't. Fair, Goku admitted. I'd probably be suspicious too. I'm glad we agree. Frost's gaze sharpened slightly. So here is where we stand. I could attempt to detain you, which, being honest with you, since you've extended the same honesty to me, I do not believe I could accomplish, and I have no intention of dying to find out for certain. I could ignore what happened here today, which would be a dereliction I'm not willing to commit. Or I could bring your case directly to headquarters myself, as a first-hand witness, and let people with the authority to make that decision actually make it, instead of letting fear write the report for them. That third one sounds better, Goku said. I agree. It's also the option most likely to get you killed by someone less patient than me if you refuse to cooperate at all, so I'd recommend taking it seriously. Vegeta snorted from the sidelines. He's not wrong, Kakarot. For once, someone here is talking sense instead of just swinging at us. It was, in its own strange way, the first genuinely complicated conversation Goku had had since arriving. Not a fight, not a chase, but a negotiation between two people who each had every reason to distrust the other and had chosen, for the moment, not to. Frost wasn't offering friendship. He wasn't offering safety either. He was offering something colder and more honest than either. A process, a chain of authority Goku could either work within or run from, and an admission, unspoken but clear in every measured word, that the world government genuinely did not know what to do with something like him yet. There's a place, Frost said eventually, where this kind of conversation happens properly. Not a cell, a hearing, the kind reserved for things the government considers too significant to handle carelessly. I won't pretend it's without risk to you, but it's considerably less risk than the alternative, which is every Marine base between here and Merigiawas treating you as an unknown hostile the next time you're spotted. Goku considered that, scratching the back of his head, weighing it the way he weighed most things, not through careful strategy, but through a simple, instinctive read of whether the person in front of him was being straight with him. You're not lying to me, he said. It wasn't quite a question. I have no reason to. If I wanted you dead, I'd have opened with everything I have, rather than a conversation. I didn't, because I don't believe that's the outcome anyone benefits from, including the government I serve. Vegeta's arms stayed crossed, his expression skeptical in the particular way that meant he was already calculating exit strategies, regardless of what Goku decided. And if this hearing decides they don't like the answer, then you'll have my word that I argued honestly on your behalf, Frost said. That's the only guarantee I'm in a position to offer. I understand if it isn't enough. Goku looked out across the water, at the retreating shapes of Blackbeard's fleet on the horizon, at Sorn's marine ships holding formation at a respectful distance, at Vegeta's tense, ready posture, and at Frost's calm, patient, unreadable face. Somewhere out there, he knew, was an entire ocean he hadn't even begun to understand yet. Factions, and powers, and rules that didn't map cleanly onto anything he'd learned across 100 other fights in 100 other worlds. All right, he said finally, and the grin came back, easy and genuine. Let's go meet your bosses, but if this turns into another fight, I'm not gonna hold back a second time. Understood, Frost said, and for the first time, something that might almost have been the ghost of a smile crossed his composed face. I'd expect nothing less. Behind them, the ice began to recede from the ocean's surface, and the water, bruised, scarred, still settling from a fight that had nearly cracked the sky itself, began, slowly, to calm. The place Frost brought them to wasn't a courtroom in any sense Goku recognized, and it wasn't a cell either. A converted marine command vessel, reinforced with enough sea prism-lined bulkheads to make even Vegeta's jaw tighten when he noticed the faint, sickly hum radiating from the walls. Not a prison, a precaution. The difference, Goku suspected, mattered a great deal to the people who'd built it, and very little to anyone unlucky enough to actually get locked inside. They weren't locked inside. That, at least, Frost had made sure of, standing at the threshold of the meeting chamber, with the quiet, immovable authority of a man daring anyone present to suggest otherwise. The chamber itself held 5 people waiting when they arrived. Vice Admiral Sorn, silver hair still damp from the sea spray, standing at rigid attention near the door. 2 other officers Goku didn't recognize, their coats marked with insignia that clearly meant something significant to everyone except him. And at the head of the table, seated with the unhurried stillness of someone who had sat through 1,000 crises and expected this to be merely the latest, a woman Frost introduced simply as Fleet Admiral Sengoku's successor, a title that meant nothing to Goku, and judging by the way the room's temperature seemed to drop when she spoke, meant a great deal to everyone else. "Admiral Frost's report reached me 20 minutes ago," she said, without preamble, studying Goku with the flat, assessing gaze of someone who had long since run out of patience for wasted words. "It described you as capable of no less than matching a Yonko in open combat, casually neutralizing 30 rounds of live cannon fire, and arriving via a method of travel that violates every principle of navigation this organization has ever catalogued. I have read stranger reports exactly twice in my career. Both times, the situation ended in war." "I'm not trying to start a war," Goku said, mild as ever. "I'm trying to get home. Honestly, this whole thing was an accident." "Accidents," she said, "are rarely the problem. Consequences are." She folded her hands atop the table. "So let us discuss consequences plainly. Since Admiral Frost assures me you respond well to honesty. If we deemed you an unmanageable threat, I do not believe we could stop you. And I say that as a statement of fact, not a concession, because false confidence gets subordinates killed, and I have buried enough of them already. That leaves us with a narrower set of choices than you might expect. We can attempt containment and likely fail catastrophically. We can ignore your presence and hope you leave quietly, which experience suggests almost never happens with individuals of your caliber. Or we can determine, through actual conversation, whether you represent something this world can coexist with." "I like door 3, Goku said immediately, and one of the unnamed officers actually let out a short, startled laugh before catching himself. "I imagined you would." The Fleet Admiral's expression didn't shift, but something in her tone eased fractionally. "Understand that this isn't friendliness, Goku. It's arithmetic. A war against something we cannot measure is a war we lose before it starts, and I did not rise to this position by choosing wars I could not win. So, talk. Convince me that whatever tore you into our ocean isn't the first crack in something larger." It was, Vegeta would later grudgingly admit, the single most reasonable conversation either of them had had with an unfamiliar authority in longer than he cared to remember. No posturing, no threats dressed up as diplomacy, just a woman doing careful, unglamorous math out loud and inviting them to check her work. Goku answered honestly, the way he answered most things, laying out everything from instant transmission to the tear in reality, to the simple, uncomplicated truth that he wanted, more than anything, to go home and finish that spar with Vegeta he'd walked away from. He didn't dress it up. He didn't need to. If anything, the sheer simplicity of his motives seemed to land better in that room than any careful diplomatic phrasing could have. "You have no interest in territory," the Fleet Admiral said slowly, working through it aloud. "No interest in the Devil Fruit hierarchy, the Yonko seats, the government's authority, or anything resembling the ambitions that usually drive individuals of exceptional strength into conflict with this organization." "Not really," Goku agreed. "I mean, this place is interesting. I wouldn't mind sticking around a bit and seeing what you guys can do. That Blackbeard guy alone was a blast to fight. But conquering anything, that's never really been my thing. I just like finding people strong enough to actually push me." "That," she said, "is either the most reassuring thing I've heard all year or the most concerning, depending entirely on how literally you mean it." "Little of both, probably," Goku admitted, grinning. Sorn, still at rigid attention by the door, allowed herself the smallest exhale of something like relief. Not because the danger had passed, exactly, But because for the first time since the cannons had frozen mid-air, the day's outcome had stopped feeling like a coin flip between catastrophe and disaster, and started feeling like something the room might actually navigate. The Fleet Admiral studied Goku a long moment longer, then turned her attention, briefly, to Vegeta, who had said almost nothing throughout the entire exchange, arms still crossed, expression carved from stone. "And you," she said, "you've been quiet." "I don't waste words on people who haven't earned them yet," Vegeta said flatly. "Kakarot trusts easily. I don't. If this turns out to be a trick, I want it understood that I will not be nearly so polite about it as he's been." "Noted," the Fleet Admiral said, entirely unbothered, "and appreciated. Honestly, I distrust rooms where everyone agrees too quickly." She rose from her seat, smoothing her coat, decision visibly settling into place behind her eyes. "Here is what I'm prepared to offer. Provisional standing. Not citizenship, not allegiance, simply the absence of active hostility, pending your continued good conduct. In exchange, I would ask that you make yourselves known to this office before engaging further conflicts of the scale we witnessed today, so that the next fleet that finds you doesn't repeat Vice Admiral Sorn's morning." "That's fair," Goku said. "It is generous," the Fleet Admiral corrected, not unkindly. "I'd ask you to recognize the difference. Marshal Teach will not forget you. Neither will several other individuals who are, at this moment, receiving the same report I received 20 minutes ago. You've made yourself known to this world in the loudest possible fashion on your very first afternoon here. That has consequences whether or not you intended them." Goku's grin faded, just slightly, into something more thoughtful. "Yeah," he admitted, "I figured that might be true." Outside, back on open deck, the sun was beginning to sink low over the new world's endless water, gilding the retreating marine fleet in orange and gold. Frost walked with them to the railing, hands clasped loosely behind his back. His earlier wariness settled now into something that might, eventually, become respect. "For what it's worth," he said, "I don't think she made the wrong call, but I'd advise caution regardless. Teach isn't the kind of man who lets an unfinished fight stay unfinished. And there are others on this ocean, stronger than either of us, who will hear about you long before you're ready for them to." "I kind of figured that's how it'd go," Goku said, looking out over the water with the same easy, unbothered curiosity he'd worn since the moment he arrived. "This place has a lot of strong people in it. I'm actually kind of excited." "That," Frost said dryly, "is precisely what worries me about you." Vegeta, standing a short distance off, allowed himself the ghost of a smirk, because if there was one thing he understood better than almost anyone in either universe, it was exactly how much trouble that particular brand of excitement tended to cause. Far to the west, aboard a black-sailed ship cutting fast across open water, Marshal D. Teach stood at the prow, grinning to himself, already turning the shape of a rematch over in his mind like a man planning a feast. The ocean, for the moment, held its breath. 3 days passed before the ocean tried to kill them again, which, by the standards Goku was quickly learning applied to this particular corner of the world, counted as a fairly generous grace period. He and Vegeta had spent those 3 days on a small, borrowed marine skiff that Frost had arranged for them, drifting the new world's edges while the Fleet Admiral's office worked out the finer details of whatever provisional standing actually meant in practice. Goku had spent most of it fishing, badly, and eating everything Vegeta refused to touch on principle. It was, by Goku's usual standards, almost peaceful. It ended the way most peaceful things did around him, with the horizon suddenly, unmistakably wrong. "That," Vegeta said, standing first, eyes narrowing at the churning dark shape spreading across the western sky, "is not weather. It wasn't. It was Blackbeard's fleet, and it wasn't alone. Trailing behind the black-sailed armada, visible even at this distance by the sheer, unnatural way the ocean seemed to bend around it, was something else entirely. A presence Goku's instincts flagged immediately as larger than anything he'd measured yet on this ocean, larger even than the Admiral or the fight 3 days prior, radiating a slow, patient hunger that made the hair on the back of his neck rise the way it hadn't since he'd first felt Beerus's aura, a lifetime ago. "Guess the rematch came early," Goku said, already grinning, already rising into the air with gold light crackling around him. Blackbeard's voice carried easily across the water, delighted, unbothered by distance. "Told you I don't waste interesting things, and I brought a friend who's very curious to meet you, someone who's spent the last 2 decades wondering if there was anything left in this world that could actually challenge her." The shape behind his fleet resolved as it drew closer, a woman standing impossibly still atop the waves, robes the color of deep ocean trenches, an aura that didn't crackle or roar the way Goku's did, but simply pressed, steady and enormous, like the weight of the sea itself given a will. One of the Yonko, the last true undefeated captain of this new age, a name that made even Blackbeard's crew fall reverently silent as she passed. Goku's grin widened, pure and uncomplicated, the particular joy of a man who had crossed universes, chasing exactly this feeling, and finally found it waiting for him. "Now that's what I came here for," he said. What followed was not something Marine record keepers would ever fully agree on how to describe. 3 days later, in the calm aftermath, Vice Admiral Sorn would write in her official report that the ocean itself had been structurally altered across a 14-mile radius, that 2 separate islands had needed emergency evacuation from tidal displacement, and that no existing scale in the Marines' classification system adequately captured what she had witnessed. What she wouldn't write, because it wasn't the kind of thing that belonged in an official report, was the moment near the fight's end when the Yonko, bruised and breathing hard for the first time in longer than anyone alive could remember, had lowered her guard entirely and simply laughed, delighted rather than defeated, and told Goku that she hadn't felt this alive since she was young enough to still believe the sea had limits. Blackbeard, for his part, never got the opening he wanted. Twice his void dark hand came close, and twice Goku's instincts, sharper now, honed by 3 days of turning that first encounter over in his mind, pulled him clear before the hunger could close its grip. In the end, it was Vegeta who caught Blackbeard's guard down, during a moment of overreach, sending him crashing hard enough into the waves that his own crew scrambled to pull him under, before anyone got greedy enough to press the advantage. Nobody died. That, more than anything, was the outcome the Fleet Admiral's office would later call the best possible result of an encounter none of them had truly been prepared for. The Yonko didn't stay to fight to the finish. She withdrew with the unhurried dignity of someone who had gotten exactly what she came for, a genuine test, the first in years, and left with a promise, not a threat, that she'd be watching to see what Goku did next in this world he'd fallen into. Blackbeard withdrew too, grinning through a swollen jaw, already turning the day's lessons over in his mind, the way he turned everything over, as opportunity, patient and unhurried, for later. That evening, back aboard the borrowed marine skiff, with the sun bleeding orange across a calmer sea, Goku sat with his feet dangling over the side, watching the water settle after a day that had rewritten what an entire ocean understood about its own limits. "You're staying," Vegeta said. It wasn't a question. For a while, Goku admitted, "This place has more good fights in it than I expected, and I still owe that Blackbeard guy a real rematch. He only got the one good hit in." Vegeta made a sound that might, in a kinder man, have been called a laugh. "Of course you do." Frost's ice-wreathed ship crested the horizon behind them, arriving with the same unhurried calm he always carried, and somewhere beyond that, in offices and war rooms across an ocean still absorbing the shockwaves of the last 3 days, decisions were being made about what it meant that something like Goku now existed within reach of the Grand Line's careful, hard-won balance. The Marines would watch, the Yonko would remember. Blackbeard would wait, patient as ever, for his moment. None of that worried Goku particularly. He'd never been a man who planned far ahead. He'd always trusted, instead, that the next fight, the next friend, the next impossible thing worth chasing would simply find him, the way it always had. Out here, on an ocean that had never once had to reckon with someone like him, he suspected it wouldn't take long at all. The tide came in, slow and steady, carrying the last of the day's violence back out to sea, and somewhere far off, beneath a sky finally settling back into ordinary blue, the world kept turning, changed, and did not yet know by how much.